What is going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. On this episode is part 2 of the exhaust system for Taylor Ray. If you haven't seen part 1, it's in the description below. And if you haven't seen Taylor Ray, go check out his channel, it's in the description as well. So what we have here is the long tube headers that we finished up in the last episode. Everything's just tacked up for now. What we're gonna do next, and I have a comparison here actually real quick. These are his old manifolds. These are actually cast. So they make this in a sand pit with this negative, and then they pour the metal inside of it, and that's how you make these type of manifolds. They're really heavy and they heat soak really bad, and stuff like this where it pinches down right here, this is where you have issues with flow. So he's running the 6.2 now in his Drift Miata, and he needs to get the exhaust out. Motors need to breathe. So that's why when you're upping the power with your LS platform or whatever you might have, you need to be able to get the flow. So a proper merge collector is key. We have these here from stainlessheaders.com. They have a nice spike in there to guide everything in. And we got all the primaries to a certain length that is pretty similar to equal length. It's not completely perfect, but the space that we had available inside this car is just really tight, so we just kind of took what we can get. So the next step is we're going to make some fixtures for these headers so that we can actually break them apart, weld all these primaries up, all these connections here all nice and pretty, and then be able to have the ability to put everything back together, weld it all together, and it still retains the same shape. And then hopefully in this episode we're going to get these all finished up, get them back in the car, and then we can move on to the titanium. So what I have here is an I-beam. This is a 2 3/4 inch I-beam. I like to use these to make these quick fixtures, but the header, as you can see, is not completely flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill some holes in this I-beam here, probably 1, 2, 3, just to get it nice and bolted down. Once I get the flange bolted over here, then I make a connection point to go from the probably back side of the flange there to the end of this collector. So once I fix this point and this point, I might put some locators underneath the primaries where my finger's wiggling. I don't know exactly how high I need to be on these primaries, but once they're welded completely solid, pretty much going to dictate where it wants to go once you pop them out of the fixture and put them back together. It's kind of hard to mimic it outside of where it is already, so you don't really have to worry too much about it. So I got my header clamped down to my I-beam. This is going to be the fixture for the actual flange. I like using these things, guys. These are called transfer punches. If you want to get the center of a hole exactly where you want to drill it, instead of guessing, this transfer punch fits perfectly like a machine fit right inside that hole. When you go ahead and give it a whack, I don't know if you can see from the light, but it's dead center where it needs to be, where you need to drill your hole. This makes this process way faster. At this point, the passenger side header is all fixtured up. We have the head flange bolted down and the back side where the collector is welded up. So now I can tack all these points here, get everything nice and tight. And you want to tack as much as you can on each one of these connections so that these primaries don't move at all once you break them out of the fixture, in order to weld them completely up and back purge everything and then put it back together. So that's the next step we're going to do now. So at this point, all the headers are completely broken down. The primaries are now separated from the fixture, and you can see now why we need to actually weld the collector in place and have the flange bolted down, because if it was all loose, you have no idea how this will all go back together. So because the tightness inside the engine bed of the Miata is so cramped, I had to put these timing marks right here on the collector so I can know exactly where these go, because when you put this in here, you can actually clock it a little bit and it'll change drastically over here. Also, when you go to prep these things before you weld, guys, you want to use Scotch-Brite to give it a nice finish, and this actually evens out the gold with the stainless, and then wipe everything down real good with acetone. Acetone is pretty much just cleans residue and any sort of grease or anything like that. You can get it at like any hardware store, Home Depot, or whatever. And that allows this to stay nice and clean, and your welds won't be all contaminated. We're going to purge weld these, so we're going to get that all set up now and start welding. All right, purge welding is not quick. It takes a while. A couple hours later, got all the primaries nice and welded, all these guys welded up. And this is how you see like really intricate headers and you're wondering how all the welds get around every single pipe and they're all twisty. This is how they do it. So like I said before, this locating fixture is crucial to be able to weld these up. Now once all these are welded up, they'll go one at a time. You pop them in there and then you start tacking all this together. You're not gonna weld everything all at once because you're totally gonna toast the header. You just do a couple tacks, get everything set, and then you make sure these timing marks that you originally had are lined up and where they need to be. If these timing marks are exactly how they were when they popped out, and you did your due diligence by making all these extra tacks, this thing will be identical to when it was just a tacked together header. So now we're gonna finish welding everything up and put it back in the truck. We have the header out on the passenger side. It's all welded up, V-bands on, head flanges are all welded. Everything's good to go. This header's pretty much done other than the O2 sensor. And now I have the driver's side and the same fixture. The only difference now is this locating arm. I cut it off from this side and now I'm going to weld on this side in order to locate this collector. Once I locate this collector, I'm just going to repeat the process and just weld everything up as much as I can, pull it out of the fixture, and then test fit. So right now we're going to go ahead and test fit the passenger side, make sure everything is good. There's no adjustments or nothing that needs to be changed around, because this is really just a locating fixture. It's not a complete and total fixture. If this is a complete fixture, it would tell me, I'd have like little arms or pedestals that would tell me every single primary and where it needs to go. This is just so that you can build a one-off set of headers. So we're gonna throw these in the car right now, this one in the car right now, make sure we're good, and then we're gonna time lapse this one out for you guys so you can see the finished product and then get them in the car. Header fits in there nice. Gonna have to trim a little bit off the metal, off this little ledge right here, because it's hitting the primary. And this brake line right here looks like it's gonna have to be repositioned, but other than that, test fit looks good. We're gonna move on to the next side. Driver's side header is all tacked up, ready to go. Got in this partial fixture just like we did with the passenger side. I had to make some adjustments on this header. The primary on number 2, I had to clock it just a hair. I had to move this primary in because the steering column, or the steering shaft was right through this hole right here, and it was hitting. So I moved this in about an inch, moved this about a ½ inch over, and that's what this will allow you to do. When you're doing everything inside the car and you can't see exactly what's going on at the top, it's really, really difficult to try to make those adjustments in the car. So what you want to do is you want to make the adjustments when you have the fixture and have the headers on the bench. I did break this off once, put it inside the car, and made sure everything fit. It does, so now I'm going to final weld everything up. Just popped the driver's side header out of the fixture and it's finally all set. Both headers are done, ready to get in for final install. Everything's welded up, collectors are welded, V-bands, head flanges, everything's all set and done. So we can go ahead and do final install and start working on the titanium. The only thing I really had to do that was different from before, like I said, was I had to move these primaries over, kind of shift things around a little bit. Whenever you're doing headers, guys, and you're doing final welding, just don't do any welding on these if they're out of the fixture. Like, do as much welding as you possibly can inside of that partial fixture that you made so that nothing moves at all, because if it moves and you have really tight clearances like we do in the Miata, we literally are like business cards on the top and bottom where the frame rail is. So I had to be really due diligent with that. So we're gonna throw them in now and see how it goes. Gonna leave it there for now, lower the car down and lift it from underneath, and then be able to put the bulbs on. exhaust is in. When I mean exhaust, I mean the long tube headers. Got the V-bands on there with the titanium female side, getting ready to run the exhaust. We got a business card on this collector. And on this collector, we did have to do a little notch on the frame right here for this primary. I had to move it over a little bit just to give the positive terminal on the starter enough wiggle room. But once we put the blanket around it, the heat blanket should be fine around this this header. This one is just kind of in there loose, but our driver's side is in. You can see what we had to go through to get this steering shaft to fit through the primaries. I have the 2 in the back and then 2 in the front, so it's like creating this like little vortex there. And Mikey's gonna steer the wheel real quick. You can see the clearance we have, and we're good to go on that primary. Before it was hitting pretty hard, but like I described in the video when we were building these things, you don't have to stress too much about making everything fit perfect when you're here in the car. Get it to like 98% where you really like it, and then you can fine tune everything, make everything perfect on the bench when you're not, you know, breaking your back and killing yourself trying to fit something in here, especially with something this tight. So it looks like the brake line right here is gonna have to get moved over a little bit. You know, a little massaging here and there. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment below if you have any questions on how to build headers like this, any exhaust questions, any welding questions. Let us know if you like the content. On the next episode, we're gonna be running that way with the Taycan titanium, 3-inch all the way back. We're probably gonna have to modify this cross member here and do some other work. Taylor wants to do something nutty back here with the exhaust, so either shoot it out this way or just dump it down. We don't know. Tune in the next episode and find out, and we'll see you guys later.